So again, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Kimberly Slater. I'm the Director of Communications for the Pennsylvania East Chapter of ASID. And thank you for joining our professional development webinar series for today. Today, we're doing the Road to the NCIDQ, presented by Kimberly Woods, Director of Engagement at CIDQ. And joining us also is Angela Kent, who is an NCIDQ certified interior designer, and she'll be on a panel with Kimberly during the presentation today. If you are not familiar with ASID, we're the oldest, largest, and only interior design professional organization where its members encompass all aspects of interior design, everything from residential to contract to healthcare to hospitality and everything in between. We'd like to thank our chapter sponsors for, without their support, these events would not be possible. Our gold sponsors, Benjamin Moore and Fested and Hall. Our silver sponsors, Dow Tile, Bright Light Design Center, Kravet, and Hunter Douglas. This webinar will be recorded. Please subscribe to our chapter's YouTube channel so you can watch the presentation at a later date. You will be emailed the link to the presentation in a few days. You can also see our other programs there. And for future events, please visit our chapter website. The address is listed there and the events page. For questions during the presentation, we'll hold them till the end, and Kimberly and Angela will facilitate those questions. Please use the Q&A feature, not the chat. It can easily get lost in the chat, so please remember to do that. You can ask questions anytime during the presentation, and we will save those to the end. For follow-up questions, you can email myself at communications@pae.asid.org, and again, to register for future events, please visit the events page. Just some minor housekeeping things of our upcoming events. We have our Industry Partner Academy Day that is coming up on May 14th. It's a day full of CEUs presented by chapter industry partners and ASID industry partners and sponsors. It's starting at 8 a.m. Eastern time all the way through the last session starting at 4:15 p.m. And you can see all the sponsors there. Please visit the events page on our website. It's featured so you can register for one or all 7. And we have our next event coming up, Designer Swag Bingo. It'll be a virtual event. We'll be live presenting this from the Design Center, and the proceeds will benefit Valley Youth House, which provides housing, education, case management, and rental assistance to LGBTQ+ youth. So that'll be our big feature event for the summer. Again, if you're just joining us, the webinar is being recorded, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, please use the Q&A feature during the event today. And thank you for joining us for the Road to the NCIDQ. And I'm going to kick it off to Ms. Kimberly Woods, the Director of Engagement at CIDQ.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I'm going to get my screen share set up here, and then we can get started. So I have a brief presentation that we will walk through to go over the NCIDQ exam. Again, my name is Kimberly Woods, and I work for CIDQ, and we are the organization that administers the NCIDQ exam. As Kim mentioned, any questions throughout the presentation tonight, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and we will address them at the end. You're also welcome to contact me directly at my email address or phone number on the screen. Tonight's event will sort of be split into 2 parts. The first part, listening to me talk about the exam, walking through a few slides, and also very excited to have Angela on the call with us. She recently became NCIDQ certified and has her own company there in the Philadelphia area, Storyful Design. So we'll bring her in for the second portion. We'll learn a little bit about what she has been up to in her career and specifically what her experience was like with the exam. So you all can also start to think of any questions that you might want to ask of Angela as well. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation portion. To start off with a few reasons as to why NCIDQ certification is so important. First, it is the industry standard. So our exam is the exam that specifically tests one on their ability to competently practice interior design. Beyond that, it can also serve as a differentiator, especially for those of you practicing in an unregulated state like Pennsylvania currently is. Becoming NCIDQ certified is an easy way to demonstrate that you have the education, you have the work experience, you understand how to apply building codes, and you understand how to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. Beyond that, it can also help to set you apart when you are seeking those different job opportunities, possibly going up for a promotion, and it really helps to give you the respect and put you on the same level as the other professionals that you're working with, like architects and engineers. As it states, it is recognized by nearly every regulated jurisdiction in North America, the exception to that being the state of California. They are the only state that has a state-specific exam that tests specifically on California building codes. Otherwise, if you are looking to become licensed, registered, or certified in any other regulated US state or Canadian province, you would need to have passed our exam in order to do so. I have also included some independent quotes from both the professional organizations, ASID and IIDA, about a potential increase in your salary that you may see as a result of becoming NCIDQ certified. Certainly something we have heard time and time again of individuals getting a bump in their salary or a bonus as a result of passing the exam. So a potential benefit you might see on the back end as well. In terms of what we're going to cover today, all the general information you need to know about the exam. If there are any questions that we don't get to tonight, or you're interested in learning more, make sure you go to our website at CIDQ.org. It is the most accurate and up-to-date source of information when it comes to the exam. So just make sure you head to our website with any additional questions you have in the future. I do want to highlight two recent changes. Both of these went into effect on April 1st, which was the start of the spring exam administration. And these will be in effect for the next several years. So it is something for you to be aware of if you're looking to take the exam in the near future. The first item there is the new exam blueprints. So every 5 years, we do a study of the profession called a practice analysis to determine what those necessary knowledge areas and skills that an individual needs to be competent in to practice interior design. The results of that practice analysis help us to create the exam blueprints, which detail the specific content areas or sections we are testing on the live exams. So again, those went into effect on April 1st, about a month ago now, and will be used for about the next 5 years until we repeat that process again. The other change also went into effect on April 1st, is specific for the practicum exam and the codes that individuals will be using for that exam in particular. So again, starting April 1st, individuals will be using the IBC, the International Building Codes, as well as a few others for that exam in particular. You don't need to memorize them, but you do need to incorporate them into your studying and be familiar with them. For the purposes of the exam itself, you will need to demonstrate your ability to understand and apply the codes to the particular question. When we look at the basics about the exam, you heard me mention the practicum a minute ago. It is one of 3 sections that make up the NCIDQ exam, the other 2 being the IDFX and the IDPX. And you do need to take and pass all 3 sections in order to become NCIDQ certified. This first exam section, the IDFX, tests specifically on book knowledge, or what one is actually learning in school. You are eligible to begin taking that during your senior year of a bachelor's degree program, your final year of a master's degree program, or any time after you graduate. You don't need to have any work experience for that first section. We do recommend, if possible, to take it sooner than later, so closer to graduation as opposed to waiting a few years, because again, it is testing you on that educational knowledge, that foundational knowledge that you're learning while in school. So it's going to be fresh on your mind the closer to graduation you take it, as opposed to waiting a few years. And for those of you who might fall into that soon to be graduate, recent graduate, getting started on that first exam early in your career, again, is another way to set you apart from your peers, showing the employer that you've taken that first step and you are interested in pursuing NCIDQ certification as a career goal of yours. The other two exam sections, the IDPX and the Practicum, require a minimum of 2 years of work experience, and those two are specifically testing on what you are learning through practice or what you are learning in the working world. The first two exams have a pretty straightforward format, being all multiple choice questions. So there is a question, 4 answer choices, 1 being correct, the other 3 being incorrect. The Practicum, on the other hand, has 3 different question types: hotspot, drag and place, and fill in the blank. And we do have a demo video on our website that I would encourage you to take a look at to get a better understanding of what each of those 3 question types looks like. I've also included some statistics from last year's exam administration. It was only offered 1 time in the fall due to the pandemic, so the pass rates are slightly higher than average, but in addition to your school and work experience, you definitely do need to put in the time and effort to prepare for the exams in order to be successful in passing them. We do also post the pass rate information on our website in general terms, like you see here, as well as the passing rates specifically for CIDA accredited programs. So if you're interested in that, again, you can check it out on our website. I do want to focus on the Practicum exam for a minute. Again, this is that 3rd section with those different question types. This is the demo video that I was referring to a minute ago, which can be found at cidq.org/practicum. In addition to walking through those 3 different question types, this video will also give you a better understanding as to how the information is displayed on the screen and within the exam platform itself. So you will see different tabs or different resources up here at the top of the exam with information that you may need to reference. So that could include the exam codes, lighting cut sheets, programming requirements, again, items that you may need to reference to help you answer the question. As it states, there is no drawing involved and you don't need to have any specific software knowledge for the Practicum exam. So no CAD, Revit, SketchUp, Adobe programs, anything like that. Essentially, if you are able to use a mouse and navigate on a computer, you can be successful in navigating the exam platform. The Practicum exam is split between 3 case studies: a small commercial, a large commercial, and residential, 40 questions on each of those 3 case studies. And you do need to take all 3 as part of the Practicum exam. You cannot focus on one particular area. For the Practicum exam, especially, time management is really critical. If you have a chance to check out this demo video later, in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a clock that is ticking down how much time you have remaining. I always recommend going in with a game plan. So maybe you knew that large commercial was a weaker area for you. So you would go in planning to spend 2 hours on large commercial, 1 hour on small commercial, and 1 hour on residential. Maybe when you got in the appointment, not quite how things would go, but again, encourage you to go in with a game plan so you're not 3.5 hours in and still working on that first case study. So make sure you are keeping an eye on the clock and that you are managing that time wisely. When it comes to qualifying for the exam, we do require a combination of education and work experience. So depending on the type of education you have, you would just follow the arrow down to determine the number of work experience hours that are needed. For all individuals, you may count up to 1,760 hours prior to graduating from your bachelor's or master's degree program. So that could include internships, co-ops, full-time work, part-time work, anything that was work done in interior design while in school. Again, up to that 1,760 hour limit could count towards the hours that are needed to qualify for the exam. We do also require that all work experience hours are signed off on by either a direct supervisor or sponsor who meets one of our 3 criteria. The first being an NCIDQ certificate holder, the second being a licensed, registered, or certified interior designer in the US or Canada, or the third being a licensed or registered architect in the US or Canada who provides interior design services. In addition, on our website at this CIDQ.org/paths page, we do have some additional recommendations as to what types of conversations you should be having with your supervisor or sponsor, and making sure that you are getting a well-balanced experience and exposure to the different design phases, not only to help prepare you for the exam, but also to help prepare you for future work in your career. When it comes to applying for the exam, there are essentially 2 options separated by this gray bar. This top option would be appropriate for anyone who doesn't quite have their work hours complete, but they're ready to get started on that first exam. So you would go ahead and apply for that first section, the IDFX. And for that, you just need your school transcript and pay the application fee. Pretty quick. Then, once you have the work hours complete and you are ready to apply for the other 2 exam sections, the IDPX and the Practicum, you would submit the second portion of that application, which includes the school transcript, uploading your work form to your online account, and paying the application fee. Alternatively, you can wait until you have both your education and work experience complete and go ahead and apply for all 3 exams at one time using the same application materials. A common misconception is that if you apply for all 3 exams at one time, you're required to take all 3 at one time, and that is not true. You certainly could take all 3 at once, and there are plenty of people that do. But applying for all 3 and getting approved for all 3 just means you are eligible to take all 3 exams. It is up to you how you would decide to take the exams within your application time period. When we look at how much everything costs, this aligns with the previous slide with those 2 different application options. Generally speaking, this application fee is a one-time fee. So to apply for that first exam section, the IDFX, this $95 fee would be valid for 4 exam administrations, which is about 2 years. Then, once you have those work hours complete and you are ready to apply for the other 2 sections, you would submit the second portion of the application, this $145 fee, which would be valid for 10 exam administrations, which is about 5 years. Or wait until you have your school and work experience complete and apply for all 3 exams at one time. This $225 fee would be valid for 10 exam administrations, which is about 5 years. So if you chose this bottom option, again, applying for all 3 exams at one time, you would have 10 exam administrations to take and pass all 3 exams. And it's up to you how you decide to split up the exams or take them within that 10 window period. Once you have applied for the exams and been approved and you're ready to start testing, that is when you would pay this exam fee. That is the fee that you pay to actually book your exam appointment. And you want to wait to pay that fee until you are feeling confident, you're prepared, you're ready to test. Because if for some reason you would fail the exam or not show up or need to cancel, you would need to repay this exam fee again in the future. So you can see that it could add up very quickly. All in to apply for the exams and take each one time. It is over $1,000, so it's certainly an investment in your future. I always recommend talking with your current employer, potential future employer, especially during the salary or negotiation phase, to see if they are able to be financially supportive of you pursuing NCIDQ certification. We've heard of a number of companies that will reimburse the exam fees. So you might need to pay them upfront, out of pocket, but once you pass the exams, they will reimburse you on the back end. I've also known companies to provide time off to take the exams, time off to study for the exams, or providing a budget to purchase study materials. Particularly for those companies that do have professional development, training, education type line item in their budget. Oftentimes they are able to pull from those funds to help cover the exam costs. So again, encourage you to talk with your employer, have that open conversation, and see how they are able to be supportive of you. When we look at the dates and deadlines for just a minute, we do accept applications every single day of the year. It just depends on when you apply as to when you would first be eligible to test. As you can see, we are currently in the fall application cycle. So any of you who might be thinking of testing this fall, you have until the end of July to get your application submitted. And if approved, you will be eligible to start taking the exams this October. In addition to the exams being offered the entire month of October each year, they are also offered the entire month of April each year. So we have 2 days left in this testing administration. But even as we are talking right now, individuals are taking the exam at all different test centers around the world. It is offered at Prometric test centers, and you would just select whatever date and time and location worked for you within the month of April or within the month of October for you to actually book your exam appointment. It is the same exam no matter where you take it as well. So if you happen to take the first section in Pennsylvania and then you move to Arizona and you took the second section in Arizona, and then you moved to Japan and you took the third section in Japan, it will be the exact same exam and it will continue to travel with you as you move throughout your career. One of the biggest questions that we get is, what do I do to study for the exams? How do I prepare? Which we'll ask Angela her insights here in a few minutes. But from CIDQ's perspective, we do not recommend or endorse any specific study books, guides, online workshops, flashcards, apps, anything that's out there on the market. Those are all produced by independent third parties. They're not associated with us. So it's really up to you to do your own due diligence and determine what might be useful for you. We often recommend checking with friends, coworkers, people who have been through the exam process, again, to learn what they used. As far as what we offer on our website, we do provide a listing of the ASID and IIDA study groups that we are made aware of. These do vary from chapter to chapter, but oftentimes you can participate in them, even if you are not a member. And I'll throw this nugget out there for Kim, who's our host tonight. I know that the local IIDA chapter will be hosting a study group, I believe later this summer for the fall exam, but hopefully she can circle back on that at the end of our discussion tonight for any of you that might be interested in joining that study group. We also do provide a listing of the books that are actually used to write the exam questions. The list is very long, so not a list of books you should go out and purchase, but perhaps you'll see some of your old textbooks on there or some books that are at your company's library that you may want to incorporate into your studying as well. The most important things I want you to remember from tonight's discussion is this slide and the one following it. No matter what you are using to study for the exams, please make sure you come back to our website to download these exam blueprints. Again, these just went into effect on April 1st and are going to be used for about the next 5 years. And they detail the content areas that we are testing on the live exams. In addition to providing those content headers, the blueprints also provide some additional descriptions as to what you are expected to know or demonstrate when it comes to that particular area, as well as the percentage of questions that are allocated to each of those content areas. These resources are all completely free, available on our website for anyone to access at any time. You don't need to have an account or provide your email or anything like that. So just make sure, again, no matter what you're using, coming back here, downloading the blueprint and incorporating that into your studying as well. We also recently posted these test your knowledge practice questions for the 2 multiple choice exams, the IDFX and the IDPX. Again, totally free. These are provided to give candidates a better understanding of the types of questions and the format of questions that you can expect to see on the first 2 multiple choice exam sections. So if any of you are thinking of taking the exams, particularly the 2 multiple choice ones, I'd encourage you to try out these practice questions and take a look at these exam blueprints so you can learn a little bit more about what is on those 2 sections. The other important piece to remember when it comes to studying is specific to the practicum exam. Again, that 3rd section with those different question types. Earlier in the call, I mentioned about these new exam codes that just went into effect on April 1st for this current spring administration. Because that codes document was quite extensive in terms of the number of chapters and sections and content that candidates needed to become familiar with, we did pull out a subset or a smaller chunk of this yellow codes file to create one that was specific for this spring or this April exam only. So this file is only going to be valid, if you will, for 2 more days, and then it will no longer be relevant. It's really important, again, I'm sharing this, that whenever you are studying for the exam, you're coming back to our website, CIDQ.org/study, to make sure you are referencing those current exam codes and current exam blueprints. The other piece for the practicum, we recently posted these case study standards, so some additional details about what each of those 3 case studies are going to be testing on specifically on the practicum exam. And Kim also did mention that she will provide a link to that study group that the IIDA chapter is holding in the follow-up email that they send out. So you can be on the lookout for more details on that. Last 2 slides here. I mentioned at the beginning of the call that Pennsylvania, which is over here in blue, currently has no regulation in place. Again, currently, that doesn't mean that there haven't been efforts in the past or that there won't continue to be efforts in the future to get some sort of regulation in place. And you can see from the different colors on the map that it really does vary across North America. In most instances, it is a voluntary step and something that we do strongly encourage you to do to help elevate and advocate for your profession. In many instances, like is true in your neighboring state of New Jersey, if you are looking to use a protected title, in New Jersey's instance, Certified Interior Designer, CID, you may have also heard of Registered Interior Designer, RID, that other states use. You need to be registered or certified with that jurisdiction. And in order to take that step, you need to have passed our exam. So you can see how everything ties in together there. In some instances, it is required that you be licensed, or registered, or certified with a jurisdiction to use the title interior designer, period, or to practice a specific type of interior design, like commercial interior design. So just keep in mind as you all are moving throughout your career, specifically as you're working on projects in different jurisdictions, that you are checking with them to understand the current laws and regulations and what you are and are not permitted to do. We do have on our website on the regulated jurisdictions page a link as well as some information that you can access for every jurisdiction that currently does have regulation in place for interior design. So if you're not sure what the particular state agency or state board is called, again, you can hop on our website to get that direct link. The final slide here gives my contact details. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but we're only halfway through the presentation. So I encourage you to drop some in there if you have any more that come up or that you think of while we're chatting with Angela. For those of you who might currently be in school or might be connected with any educators there at any college or university, not just in the Philadelphia area, I do want to make you all aware of this discount opportunity we have been running for a few years now. Educators can get a code from us to give to their students to save money on that IDFX exam application fee. There's no cost to the school or the teacher or the student, but again, a little bit of cost savings for a quick form for them to fill out and us to get the code created for them. So if any of you are currently in school or again connected with any of the colleges or universities, we do have that form on our website, or they can reach out to me directly. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to transition to the second part of our evening here. And we have Angela joining us. So again, I have a few questions prepared for Angela, but again, welcome any that you all want to toss her way. Again, you can use the Q&A box to drop those in. So Angela, to get started, do you mind just giving us a brief introduction of yourself? Maybe what type of work you do, who you work for, that sort of a thing?
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, Kim, and hello everybody that's watching in. My name is Angela Kent, and I'm the founder and design principal of Storyful Design. I actually just launched my own business in January. For the past 10 years, I've worked as a commercial interior designer in Philadelphia for various larger scale architecture firms, including Knorr and Meyer Design. And now I'm finding myself transitioning into a new place of starting a small business and working on a combination of residential and commercial projects.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here tonight, Angela. So a few questions to start off with, focusing on the exam. So can you talk to us a little bit about what your strategy was in taking the exams? Did you decide to try all three of them at one time, or did you split them up and just focus on one at a time, or what was sort of your approach in taking them?
My approach was to do all three at one time. I think that's probably maybe a little more unconventional than most, but I had an unusual year, as we all did, with COVID. And so I had a lot of time on my hands where I thought, you know what, I'm just going to use this opportunity that's been given to me and really just heads down, get this done and do it all at one time.
Yeah, that's a similar strategy we have heard as well, that obviously at the base level, you know, the exams are all testing on the interior design profession and practice. And like Angela, there's a lot of people that go with that method. If I'm already going to dedicate the time to study, like I might as well go ahead and sort of tackle all three. But again, it is a personal decision. So if that doesn't work with your schedule, totally okay. I know some people just focus on one exam per year, or they'll do the two multiple choice together and then the practicum separately, or they'll do the IDFX by itself and then the IDPX and practicum. So there's no right or wrong answer. Again, it's whatever works with your own personal goals and what's going on with your life. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you prepared for the exams? Were there certain materials that you were using? Maybe how far in advance you started studying, or how much it was sort of every day that you were studying, or was it just like on the weekend for an hour or two, or any insight you can provide on sort of your study process?
Sure. So I signed up to take all 3 exams in the fall. And so starting in June, I started looking into resources and materials, and I looked at the recommended list that was on CIDQ's website. I also reached out to a lot of my professional colleagues who had already taken the exam and asked them what they had used, what their experience was like. And then finally, I compared several different books online, and I read Amazon reviews that people had written, which was helpful because people could comment, you know, how useful that book was in taking the exam. And in the end, I decided on the NCIDQ reference manual, the 6th edition by David Kent Ballast. I know other people I talked to have done flashcards as an option. I really like to, I'm a visual person. I just wanted to sit down and really get into text. I also thoroughly went through the CIDQ website, went through all of the blueprints. I printed out the exam codes so I could highlight and mark them up. And I also made sure I invested in paying for the practice exams that were offered through the website, which I really think were one of the most helpful tools that I used in preparation.
Unfortunately, we no longer offer those practice quizzes, but they were a great resource when Angela was testing. We actually quit offering them in late 2020 following the final or the fall administration last year. So we no longer offer those, but as Angela stated, there are a number of resources out there that you can easily find with a quick Google search. And really like her idea, as I mentioned earlier, checking with people that you know and that you trust that have taken the exam. Look at reviews online to see what sort of insights you can gain, because again, those people have been through their process, to sort of learn from what they used and, you know, take it with you. Like she said as well, I've also heard of people making flashcards to prepare for the exam, and just like taking the exams, you know, studying is a very individual process, if you will. And so she preferred getting that book and reading through that. There's other people that really need to have a group study session or need to have like a very specific calendar that they're following to make sure that they're staying on track. So again, it's sort of whatever works with you. And I know Angela mentioned that she sort of started researching things and studying around June. So that's about 4 months ahead of the October exam date when she tested. And that is pretty typical with what we hear. I would say on average, we probably hear 2 to 3 months ahead of time. I've also heard people studying for a whole year in advance. And so again, you sort of know your own comfort level, what your knowledge is, using those exam blueprints to see if there's any areas where you might be weaker in. So you might want to focus some more studying time on that area, can also be helpful. But since you did start studying in June, Angela, was it something that you were doing every single day? Was it like 5 hours a week, or can you give sort of an idea of what the time commitment was that you were sort of dedicating to preparing?
Yes. I would say for me, it was between 5 and 10 hours a week. I was definitely at least Monday through Friday, you know, really focusing 1 to 2 hours per day. Sometimes I would get up really early in the morning before the start of my day, and I would sit with my coffee and do some reading, and then I would do some more before I went to bed. And like you were mentioning, Kim, you know, I ended up doing it all on my own in isolation because of this unusual year. But I've worked at firms in the past where within our own office, we had study groups that formed out of people doing that together, you know, at the end of the workday. So if you found yourself in a workplace where you had other coworkers who were interested, you know, you could pull together. But for me, it helped to just have that kind of heads down, focus individual time.
Yeah, that's sort of a similar amount of time I've heard as well, like 5 to 10 hours per week. Again, everyone's different, but some advice I've been hearing since pandemic has started that like using your lunch hour, or maybe instead of the time that you would have spent commuting, if you're still at home, like dedicating, you know, a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon, or maybe if you're walking on the treadmill, you know, you can flip through a book instead of, you know, watching Netflix or something like that. And so really sort of making the most of your time. But again, this is a financial commitment. And so you do want to put in that time to prepare to retake it. It's not going to be $10. It's going to be hundreds of dollars. And you're going to need to wait 6 months. And so if there is a promotion, depending on it, a job, something like that, again, you're going to have to wait. So make sure that if you've been determined you're going to take in October, that you sort of, again, put in the time and effort. You might need to make some sacrifices with your, personal or professional life. Again, let people know that this is something that you need some heads down time for. And I'm sure they'll all be supportive of you pursuing that as well. Maybe one more exam related question for you, Angela, especially being in an unregulated state. Why did you ultimately decide to pursue NCIDQ certification? Was it just a personal goal of yours? At the time, was it something that your prior employer was pushing for, or you knew you were going to go out on your own and you were sort of looking to, elevate yourself or set you apart from others?
Mm-hmm. This has been a personal goal of mine really since I graduated from college, which was over 10 years ago. I actually recently found a notebook of New Year's resolutions from like 7 years ago where this was on there. So you can see how well I did sticking to that. But I always wanted it as a personal achievement, as a way to distinguish myself as a professional. And this year was really critical for me in kind of thinking of a new career direction. I was either going to be starting my own business or applying, for a new position. And I knew in either case, it was going to be beneficial in either negotiating a salary, being accepted to a more senior position, or in credibility as running my own business. And already I've been having some interesting feedback, just having that, the NCIDQ at the end of my, name and email signatures to people that I'm emailing outside of our profession. They're responding to me, oh, I learned something new today. I Googled what that was. And I learned you're a professional interior designer. So people are already making those connections.
That's really great to hear. I mean, sort of one of everyone's job, I guess, in their profession is to help educate those around them as to what they do. And so being NCIDQ certified, again, it sort of separates you, I'm sure, from the stereotypes you've all heard about decorating and HGTV and things like that. And so showing the people that you're working with and the clients you're working with that you have that technical expertise, you actually know what you're doing, really is a benefit to becoming NCIDQ certified. And like Angela said, it really sort of opens up a number of opportunities for those of you who might be actively looking for a job or have done so anytime in the past or in the future. You often will see NCIDQ certified. If it's not a requirement, maybe it's a preference. And especially if those of you who are looking to work at the larger firms like Gensler, HOK, you're looking to do work in healthcare, commercial, they really are looking for that NCIDQ certification. And even if you don't have it when you accept that employment, let them know that that's something you're interested in pursuing, because again, they can then help support you along the way to becoming NCIDQ certified, even if it's not financially. Angela mentioned earlier about some companies where coworkers might be taking the exam, so you can sort of form, an ad hoc study group. And the same is true even if you're not forming a formal study group. Like, use the people around you to ask questions, bounce ideas off of, help them explain something that you're just not quite grasping. So encourage you again to use those around you and sort of soak in the wisdom that they have. So we're going to flip off of the exam for a minute. I have a couple more questions here. And again, I see there's one question in the Q&A, but any others, feel free to throw them in there. So Angela, especially now that you're going out on your own, are there other credentials or certifications that you have pursued or are interested in pursuing in the future?
So currently, I'm in the next phase of studying for the WELL AP exams, is the next certification that I'm hopeful to get. I'm finding that it seems I felt that it was very relevant before, but particularly into the time period we're moving into now, health within the interior environment is going to be a critical part of any conversation moving forward.
That's so true. And just like with NCIDQ certification, becoming well certified, LEED, NKBA, AHID, there's all kinds of letters out there you can add after your name, but it really does help to give you more specialized knowledge. And again, let the people that you're working with know that like you do have that experience and knowledge in that particular area. So I didn't have this on our pre-prepared list of questions, but since you are now starting out on your own and maybe some others, that's an ultimate goal of theirs as well. Have there been any challenges that you've faced in this first 4 months that you sort of, learned through the process that you might want to share?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Yeah, it's a whole new learning experience for me. It's really fun. It's really intellectually stimulating and something where I'm learning new skills every day. But, trying to get out there and find work in a period where still everything is very virtual and there's not a lot of in-person networking and opportunities has been a very interesting situation to start out in. And just being able to physically be on a job and visit as many places as I need to, get to showrooms to, look for materials. All of these things have been limited as a result of this year. But, we all have optimism that that's going to change pretty soon and we'll be able to re-engage.
Yeah, I can only imagine it's been challenging, but just like any other time in life, you're always going to come up with challenges or things that you haven't experienced before and you have to sort of problem solve. I heard on another webinar today that that's what you guys are, is problem solvers, and that should just be your job title, not interior designer.
Yeah.
But a comment that she made, especially in a virtual world, is really make sure that you guys are maintaining those connections and relationships that you have. And so even though Angela's not working for those companies anymore, like she's made those relationships. And so again, she can call on them if she needs advice, if she's looking for someone to review a contract for her, whatever it might be. Again, if she's maintained those relationships, those are people that are going to come back and be helpful for her, especially as she is looking to grow her own business.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm having phone conversations with people I've known throughout my career regularly, and definitely taking advantage of that resource of knowledge and staying connected.
Absolutely. And then maybe one final related question, and then we'll get to Kim for the Q&A. Since you've been out of school now for about 10 years, and again, now you're branching out on your own, do you have any career tips or career advice that you might want to share?
That's a good question. I would say from my experience, I worked as a corporate commercial interior designer for most of my career. And if you're just graduating from school and you're not kind of sure what sector you want to go into, give yourself the opportunity to try out, different sectors. Use the next 10 years to work, across the board. Try residential, try corporate, try healthcare, dabble a little bit in each, because that's just going to make you a really valuable and knowledgeable individual across our industry and help you kind of tune into where you really feel like your passion lies as you fine tune later on.
That's so true. It's always interesting to hear when I'm doing these presentations and people tell me like, oh, I didn't take the traditional path. And I'm like, well, what is the traditional path? Like, again, there's no right or wrong answer. And you have to try out a few different areas before you find where your passion lies, or you don't take the exam right away, or like Angela, you wait 10 years and that's then when you see the value in taking it. That's totally okay. Like, again, it is a personal decision and you need to, like she said, find out where your passion lies. Sometimes it can be challenging, and really making sure that you're finding the employer that is the right fit for you. And so another tip I heard the other day, in interviews, it's not just them interviewing you to find out if you're a good fit, but you really do need to find out if that company, the culture, the people you'll be working with, how they're going to be supportive or collaborative with you, if that is going to be a match for you, your personality, and what your needs are. So with that, I really appreciate Angela being on the call with us today. Hopefully you guys gained some insight from her experience here. But I'm going to flip it over to Kim, and I see there are some questions popping in, so we'll have her throw them our way, and we'll start working through them for the last 10 minutes or so.
Perfect. Thank you, Kimberly and Angela. That was very informative. And I have to second Angela's, I'm a big proponent of getting out there, trying different sectors, seeing, you know, I graduated almost 24 years ago, and I went into hospitality, commercial design, ended up in residential, loved that, and then ended up becoming a product representative. So you never know what path you're going to lead, and it's never too late to start studying or taking the NCIDQ. So thank you for that. So we do have a bunch of questions. The first one we're going to go to is someone similar. Hi, Angela. I too have graduated from college 10 years ago. When do I receive the NCIDQ certification? Do you advise that I start an entry-level position in the commercial world, or will I be ready for a more junior level?
So I guess to understand the question a little bit more, so you graduated 10 years ago, but have not worked in the commercial sector yet? Is that the case?
Yeah, that person, it's MC, if she wants to elaborate on that. I think, you know, as Kimberly has explained, correct. Yep, there we go.
Okay. You know, I think that would really be employer dependent and how they perceive your experience and you know, the level of taking the exam. It's hard to know for each employer how they would determine, but I would say that you would definitely need to gain a little bit more experience in the commercial sector before being most likely promoted to a more advanced level. But you could move up very quickly. You know, I would think that would be the case if you've taken the exam, if you're you know, learning quickly and you know, getting in there. I don't see why you couldn't progress to a more intermediate position.
Exactly. Thank you. Great. Okay, so we have a question, a little bit different time frame. I graduated from school in 2001, so 20 years ago, and I'm a member of ASID. Since I've worked for myself in various and numerous projects, I've always been under the impression that since I did not work for another designer, I wasn't able to sit for the exam. What is your advice? And I think, Kimberly, you answered this earlier in your presentation about getting someone who's already NCIDQ certified to kind of back you up, if that's for a loose term for that.
Yeah, so I can't speak to what the policies were back in 2001, but I know for at least the last 10 years, we have had the option for either a supervisor or sponsor to sign off on those hours. And that could be for someone who's self-employed. Maybe you're working for an engineering firm, you're just doing some freelance work. Again, there are many different areas. Maybe you just don't have a good relationship with your former employer and you don't want to go back to them to have them sign off on the hours. So if you need assistance in finding a sponsor, Kim did type my email up in the chat a little bit earlier. You can email me directly after the call and we can communicate offline, and I can help get you connected to someone to have those hours count if you are interested in taking the exams. But it is possible.
Or like me, a lot of the companies aren't around anymore. You have, can't
That
have
is
somebody
true.
sign off on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, so we have another question here. Angela, you mentioned that you took all 3 exams at the same time. Does that mean you took the exams like back to back to back? Therefore, you studied for all 3 at the same time. Very ambitious.
Yes, I did take them back to back. I took 2 of them within the month of October, 2 weeks apart. And then I gave myself a month till mid-November to take the practicum. It was very ambitious, and you know, everyone's unique and different. I would say from my experience, I would not recommend trying to take all 3 at once. I had an unusual year last year because of COVID. I also took time off from work because I'd had a baby. And so I was using, you know, the time that I had. I think if I had been full-time employed, I could not have done that. It would have been very hard for me. So, you know, you have to decide what you're capable of, but yes, that was an unusually ambitious task.
And with that, I'll just add again, as I mentioned earlier, that it's important to keep your personal and professional responsibilities in mind as well. And so it is totally okay if you want to just do one at a time, because you don't want other things to end up, you know, suffering or falling by the wayside in your life. Like Angela did, though, if you do happen to take multiple tests in one administration, try spacing them out if you're able. So she took one, you know, the first week, one 2 weeks later, and then after that, some people try to do them 2 in a day or back 2 days in a row. And again, it's really already a very stressful and anxiety inducing process. If you're able to break them apart by a couple days or a week, I encourage you to do that if you are taking more than one at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah, just to add to that, I would consider, like when Kim's mentioning people trying to do 2 in 1 day, or, you know, 2 over 2 days, there's a physical aspect to taking an exam. You're sitting for 4 hours. And while you do have permission to get up and go to the bathroom, like for me, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I got to sit here and focus and, you know, get this exam, you know, do the best I can and deliberate over my answers. So just keep in mind, you know, the physical aspect of the day and, you know, giving yourself that time as well.
Perfect. Okay, quick question for Kim. Where on the CIDQ website can I find the form for IDFX student discount?
So it is at CIDQ.org/educators is the direct URL, and there's a picture that you can click on to download it, or again, they can always contact myself or our office directly if you forget that afterwards, and we can provide that form to them.
Perfect. And then the last question is, how are you transitioning what you learned in commercial design in the residential world?
That's a good question. I think, you know, whatever field you work in, whatever specialty, you know, our knowledge as an interior designer transcends in many different ways in terms of thinking about how people, you know, operate within their space and their functional needs, as well as, you know, aesthetic needs. In terms of residential work, I, even as a commercial interior designer, worked on residential projects just in a different capacity. I worked in senior living facilities that were large scale residential units. So I had some crossover there, as well as in my working on my own home and personal projects for friends and family on a residential scale. But I do think I have probably a different aesthetic or take maybe on residential as a result of my commercial experience and exposure.
Exactly. And they're two different total beasts as well.
Yes, yes. And just,
You
yeah.
have a hand holder in residential, there's a lot more emotion involved. So having done, like you, commercial into residential, I think having the experience and the background knowledge, the attention to detail definitely helps in that residential. So
Absolutely, yes.
Exactly. So thank you, ladies. I'm just going to share a couple more screens here. Make sure I can do this the right way. So hopefully you're seeing my large screen. Are we correct? Oh, perfect. It's always fun trying to switch screens. So I again want to thank Kimberly Woods, the Director of Engagement from CIDQ, and Angela Kent from NCIDQ Certified Interior Designer for joining us. I saw some fabulous names. Kimberly, if you wouldn't mind putting your email again into the chat, just so people have it right there, that would be fabulous. I see tons of familiar names in our attendees today. So thank you all for joining us. I'm not going to shout out everybody, but you know who. Everybody knows who I know on there. So again, follow-up questions. Kimberly's going to put her information into the chat. Follow-up questions, we can see for anything ASID related, or if you don't have Kimberly's information, we'll get a question to her with my information right there. Again, upcoming events, we have our industry partner Academy Day. I take on ASID's Academy Day upcoming. So even if you are not looking for IDCEC credit, please join us. You can always learn something from some of these fabulous ASID industry partners and sponsors. We also have our Designer Swag Bingo, a fun event. There's been so many amazing events this year that are professional development, talking about the industry, your health and well-being. Well, for our health and well-being, we're doing something fun. So it's a chance to benefit an amazing organization in the Delaware Valley area and win some cool stuff by playing Designer Swag Bingo. Registration information will be coming very soon for that. And again, I want to thank Kimberly Woods of CIDQ and Angela Kent for joining us today. Again, I'm Kimberly Slater, the Director of Communications for ASID Pennsylvania East Chapter. On behalf of my board, the board and our other members, we thank you for joining us today. The webinar link will be sent to you in a few days, along with the IIDA PA New Jersey Delaware chapters link to their study group session. They have some discounted rates as well. So we will provide that to you in the next few days. So thank you for joining us again and have a great evening. And thank you for joining us for the Road to the NCIDQ. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.